Hello Gobs and welcome back to another episode of RPG Stories. I'm going on the RPG Horror subreddit, or my subreddit, and I'm reading horror stories for you guys today and giving advice on them. Once more, we have some long ones, so lock in, strap in, get your snacks, because we are going to read a plentiful amount today, or maybe not a plentiful amount, but really long ones. But I am bringing a story back from my subreddit to you guys, from a person who has posted many stories. Is that just really unlucky? Keep getting into all these RPG horror stories. Now, I wish everyone could get into good RPGs. I wish everyone could have good campaigns, good sessions. But when you play with mortals, be it friend or stranger, you are bound to run to horror stories eventually. Now, they might not be to the scale of what we read on the channel, and they could be little things that eventually stack up and become a big burst. But regardless, I wish at the end of the day for everyone to have good sessions. So check out my videos to see other different horror stories, and maybe you might find one in a simulation that's similar to you. But remember, check that disclaimer before we actually get in here. And one more thing before we get into these stories, these may or may not be real. That is not up for me to decide. But even if they are fake, they still make good stories to give advice on. Now let's get into the title so we can start today's episode. Our first story comes from my subreddit. Like I already said that. But it comes from Art Monzo, who has once again shared her story from the RPG horror subreddit to my subreddit. And that still counts, okay? That still counts to me, okay? If you put a story somewhere else and you just want to share it to my subreddit or whatever it's called on Reddit, then you're more than welcome to, okay? It's still gonna count, and I will still read it eventually, most likely. I know there are some stories that I usually skip over, but those are for other reasons. But regardless, I'm still most likely going to read them. So let's get to reading this story. This story, once again, comes from Art Monzo. RPG horror story. Why did I say it like that? Stereotypes are here for a reason. Bigotry warning, content warning, fantasy racism, implied PDF file, sections of COVID, mentions of torture. So I watched Magic Cards Bard's video and it reminded me of an old high school DM, Johnny in the late 2000s, who let the class of stereotypes of TTRPG rule his DMing/play. A few that I can remember from high school. People tried to turn Skill Monkey into engineer types in Pathfinder 1E via the rogue, since Gunslinger wasn't allowed and always started in jail or was branded a criminal because of the class's background, regardless of craft, social class, or race. They had to be criminals, conmans, or pirates, and never a lawful alignment. The rogue could never be lawful. Bards had to be able to sing or play instruments for full class features, plus be flirty. The worst was the strict, lawful good paladin stereotype. Law enforcers who couldn't commit crimes even if laws were unjust, refusing rewards and leaving characters undergeared or not scaling properly in 3.5 or 4E. The deity had to be lawful good or close, with backgrounds like Jesus or Judge Dredd, or paladins who had lost levels and needed long redemption quests, which few completed. So, cut to 2021 or 2022. The pandemic is in full swing. I just moved out of my folks' home after increasing boundary issues and other toxic behavior. I was invited to an anime dark style online D&D 5e game by Johnny, whom I ran into while working on gig apps. Starting at 9th level, we were a group of outcasts. Me, as a Dragonborn, Oath of Vengeance, Paladin/Dragon Sorcerer, Sorcerer to Love Foretell, was a holy warrior turned knight errant after the Order Master of the People's Defenders freely went along with corrupt reforms under stripping of rights. Puppy, a mute gnome college of puppetry bard whose circus burned down to the ground by racists to avoid paying them, and communicated with puppet signs/music boxes by her parents. Anger Burns, Tiefling Gloomstalker Ranger, an ex-bounty hunter who, after bagging a number of resistant members to the Mad King's reforms, had the Inquisition called on them for being part demon, despite the Inquisition being quietly replaced by Demon Cult by the new king, Lord Shadowmar, the bastard-born half-orc rogue who was formerly going to be the head of a noble house, but due to a mix of racial purity laws and both sides of his noble line getting purged by the rule of the new king, fled in the night and trying to find his orc cousins for aid. The campaign background. Stuck in a nation that, thanks to the wrong prince getting crowned as the guy of Hedeman, disappeared around the same time as the old king was assassinated by a non-human, according to the new king. Over the last 20 years, saints have been held for non-humans. Slavery, using them for sacrifices to dark powers, closing off the borders as too many non-humans fleeing / threats from former allies. We were traveling together because we had all been screwed over by society, and our issues were, one way or another, linked to a strange noble lord in one of the worst parts of the country. All of us wanted him to pay in some way or another, plus he may have a way past the magic boundary, keeping the non-humans. Over the course of 3 to 5 sessions, we were traveling deeper into the heavily wooded province, where monsters of all kind lie in wait, and a few civilized counties were at the smallest a gathering hamlets, and the largest a small trade post or lake/river port. It was the sessions, or at least parts of them in civilized parts, that put a timer on the campaign. Strike 1. After completing a quest to recover wagons of food meant for one of the few untouched halfling villages, we learned that the good part of the people's defenders were extorting the town for food. They demanded either that the 1/3 of the town return to the capital as slaves, or that the town give up most of the wood, coal, and furs stockpile for the coming winter. I stepped in and asked the quest giver, what in the name of the effing gods were they doing? Only to be told, doing the people's bidding by finding fresh slaves for the slave pits, as is the people's will through the God King Emperor. Before pointing out that I still carry the emblem of the order, I was told that I'm still part of the organization and have to obey the king, especially as one blessed with dragon's blood. I naturally ripped the emblem off and broke it while in the same motion, stabbed a man with the 2-headed broadsword. A short combat later, the survivor points out that the key is enchanted to not open the food stores unless 1. Someone of true blood is touching it, pure human or dragon, or 2. Someone stronger than the owner claims it, before trying and failing to teleport it away with Puppy's counterspell. Lord grabs the keys and shoves it into the defender's open wound while I lay on hands. We told the crowd with fair music from Puppy's dolls that they can rip it out of him and save themselves from hunger, leaving the man screaming as he is ripped apart by starving halflings. Strike 2. While coming back from a job dealing with cannibalistic bridge trolls, Angerburns was told to make a hard perception check to spot a tattoo to a bounty hunting group that was part of trying to hand her over. The sheriff confessed on the spot to it, but it was years ago. Plus, he now has a wife and kids and was a productive member of the community, of what the DM put as, not even racist white trash would live here. In fact, there was his wife and kids now, running down the hill to tell him about their day, dinner in hand. Angerburns and the rest of us waste no time killing whatever law enforcement was in the building, which, to be fair, was being condescending and tried to shortchange us on the reward. The wife and kid were put in a jail cell within earshot by Puppy, as Shadowmoor looked over the records of the noble we were trying to find, as well as freeing prisoners that were clearly being held on false charges. Angerburns and I took turns beating and scalping the crap out of the sheriff to get the combo for the evidence locker full of loot and other names of the man that wronged our party member, who also seemed to be working for the noble that we were looking for, before setting the sheriff's office on fire. But after letting the wife and kids go, the wife tried to stab Shadowmoor, and in kind, he stabbed her, leaving the kids to grieve over the body. And then out of the way of most townships surrounded by catfolk, as effectively used as a base for the most of the game. While investigating the area where the noble's hand and manor was, the man had access to druidic magic to hide it. Getting back to see the place burned to the ground, and the mother and father catfolk running the place, hanging from a tree, stripped of clothing and brutalized. The 2 kids were nowhere in the remains of the building we called home and were helping fixing up. Angerburns trekked the drag marks to one of the swamp towns on the border. To make a long story short, the town was full of cultists, grabbing non-human travelers to sacrifice the Lovecraftian swamp puppy. The family was accused of cheating one of the elders out of cards, supplies, and possibly the dad was cheating on one of their wives, so they organized the kidnapping of the kids and the lynching of the parents. This story has just been crazy from start to finish. Let's just keep reading to see where this even goes. Getting back to town after the quest they put us on, thinking their demigod was unkillable, to a party of levels 10s at this point, dropping the monster's head to their feet, they dropped the act. Going from anger at killing their god, to appeals to tradition and Shadowmoors and my character's pure sides of our bloodlines, ending with, "You can't just kill all of us, we outnumber you, and clearly too good to wipe out a town," which my character laughed. Shadowmoor ordered the women and children indoors, and Puppy put a puppet by the door to the temple to block it. It didn't take long to massacre the whole lot of them after the warlocks and trained fighters went down. We then told the women and children to flee into the night as we looted the temple and set it on fire. The session ended with Johnny telling me that I have become an oathbreaker, and everyone was now of an evil alignment and needed to make new characters. Oh, so that's where it all comes in now. Oh, that makes... Okay, now it's starting to all click together. I just had to keep reading a little bit more. You know, I just had to put the pieces together. Now, you know, alignment in D&D and even in Pathfinder can get a bit sticky, okay? People have different views on what is the alignment. You can read it over and over, but everyone will have a different image in their head on what the alignments actually are. This is why most people try to make, neutral, chaotic neutral characters, because when you play chaotic, you don't have to lean towards lawful, but you also don't have to be in the middle as neutral. I think more people tend to play true neutral, but chaotic neutral seems to be where everyone lies. Because chaotic is like, you just make your decisions on what information is given to you at the time. Whereas lawful is you tend to make your decisions based on whatever laws of the area you're in. But it's not only areas set by society or by someone, it could also be laws set to a moral code that is given to the people, such as a monk in a temple. This does not mean that if you break one of those laws, you're immediately neutral or chaotic. That's not what it means. It just means when given decisions, you most likely lean towards lawful, towards whatever set of codes that your character lives by. That is all lawful means. Good, neutral, and evil. Now, those are a bit more grayed, but I think everyone knows whenever you say evil, you get a good idea of what evil is. But this is why I really don't like alignment in the first place. All I'm saying is alignment is a very fickle thing, and just change it based on one decision. I mean, unless that decision's you, it's an entire town of cultists that were stealing people and trying to kill them. And then the cultist was like, well, you can't kill all of us. We outnumber you. So in turn, the party just turns around and kills them. And they spared the children and women. I mean, they didn't make the women and children run into the night, so I mean that part might be a bit too much, but I don't think this is inherently evil because the cultists were essentially asking for this. Again, this kind of just falls in line. It was a chaotic neutral decision. They weren't adhering to the laws. The character wasn't really, does that make him an oathbreaker? I mean, not really. I think Oath of Vengeance, you don't even have to follow. Let me look at the Oath of Vengeance real quick and I'll put it on screen. The Oath of Vengeance is a solemn commitment to punish those who have committed a grievous sin. When evil forces slaughter helpless villages, when entire peoples turn against the will of the gods, when a thieves guild grows too violent and powerful, when a dragon rampages through the countryside. At times like these, paladins arise and swear an oath of vengeance to set right that which has gone wrong. To these, sometimes called avengers or dark knights, their own purity is not as important as delivering justice. And the tenets are fight the greater evil, no mercy for the wicked, by any means necessary, and restitution. Yeah, this all sounds pretty in line. I mean, what the character did sounds pretty in line for what an Oath of Vengeance paladin would do. They did do what the oath intended to say, so that doesn't really make him an oathbreaker. I think the DM was just really upset about the way that the story was going, even though he kind of should have Even though he kind of should have foreseen that this would happen. He's like, yeah, obviously, I think the party of good people would want to, kill the people that are killing other people. I call me crazy. I think the issue here is that there's going to be a lot of miscommunication, and let's just keep reading, and I think we still have a good bit of this story to go. The aftermath. We, the party, talked to the DM in a makeshift session 0, where the DM laid out what he hated after reviewing our sheets and backstories a bit more thoroughly. The first thing was that, by D&D tradition, we were not a real D&D party, as none of you are playing your classes right or the proper alignments. None of us were on the good axis, as I was chaotic neutral. See? Told ya! Oh, bam! Anyways... leaning chaotic evil. Shadowmoor was lawful neutral, Puppy was true neutral, leaning neutral good, and Anger's Burns was chaotic neutral, leaning N or L. Johnny told us that leaning isn't a thing, and we needed to roll up good characters as, regardless of a crap world, adventurer parties are always the good guys, and you four act more like mercs and hired thugs, which in fairness, adventurers are a step up from. Okay, I'm just already having a problem with this, and it's it's just stereotypes. That's just like OP said. It's literally just stereotype. All adventure parties have to be good. No, the adventure parties adhere to what everybody wants out of the campaign. I mean, if the DM wants a party of good people, then he should in this world they are acting good though, and. In a weird sense, in a world full of people who hate non-humans and they're sticking up for non-humans, I'd say that's pretty darn good. Again, this is just a miscommunication on the DM's part. The killing the people might be a bit excessive, okay? But you have to kind of look at this as their decision, and in one way, it's good. The course of the nature, like shoving the keys into the one guy, that was a bit over the top, okay? That might not be good, but that's still, neutral. It's not inherently evil, I would say, because that guy entirely wronged all the other people. They were literally going to take the people and make them into slaves. What more do you want? And slaves are going to get torn to shreds by hungry gnomes, okay? That seems pretty good. Not the action itself, but the nature of it all is inherently good. I don't know. I think the DM just had a different idea in his head, and he should have communicated more thoroughly. Which, technically they're communicating now. Let's just keep reading. On top of the alignment issues, we will murder Hobering, regardless of who attacked first. Species slurs or refusal to talk until they were on their deathbeds. Even if beard, they just come back a session later with friends and mock us for our weak mercy and try the same waterworks when they are nearly down again. On top of that, we did kill women regardless of them attacking first or us defending ourselves, and possibly inadvertently killed kids by making them orphans. He pointed out how each of us were failing as our chosen class. Lord Shadowmoor was a rogue and couldn't be lawful in any way, regardless of taking the noble background. The fact that he was also playing a pirate subclass when acting like an English gentleman showed that he never really played a true rogue before. Next was Angerburn, who, as a ranger, was too urban and was also taking away the optional feature that replaces favored terrain. Rangers and Keepers of the Walls, and also didn't like that she picked humans and the like as favorite enemies, regardless of her backstory having them lived in the cities for most of her life. It's not logical for your character. As he switched to Puppy. Oh, Puppy, the homebrew mute puppet bard, was told that she needed to add a lot more singing or poetry to her act to be a real bard. He also wanted to question if she was going for some kind of sexy jester, given the nature of the class. The performance acts around kids had Johnny concerned about if anything was going on, given that the whole class was sexual in nature and was trying to quietly block them in just in case. Which Puppy, being IRL non-verbal autistic, either from likely being told she was going to lose her text-to-speech bot or being suggested to be a pedophile, dropped the server, followed by Burns and Lord. People with rash minds. Let's finish this out. He was confused about why they dropped or even blocked him, and about the claim that people don't understand what their character will do, since class tropes are the building blocks of any character in the hobby. I tried to explain to him how that wasn't true, or the whole, "Why are you barred around children? Don't you know they have to be sexy" comment, only to get my share of what was wrong with my character and me as a person. Paladins and Clerics First Editions were always to be beacons of morality and justice, and all paladin and cleric players have to keep that in mind, regardless of whatever Wizards of the Coast says. He wasn't going to stop me from taking the Oath of Vigilance, but I needed to be the most lawful good version of that possible. Like how my antag, the Order Master as a paladin, had no choice but to hold up the evil laws. In fact, if he had fully read my backstory or the others, he wouldn't have allowed me to become one, after finding a line about losing their faith in the system, meaning I didn't even have the most basic part of being a paladin, faith. He went on about how I was leading the party to the wrong conclusion about the noble, as he was dropping hints that he was the lost prince and all the pain and suffering he did to the party was accidental / preparing us to be agents he needed to take back the crown. He ended it with a speech about how I haven't changed since high school, inflexible and unable to adapt to the pre-established groundworks that RPGs and fantasy have laid out to how the genre works. I needlessly pushed the boundaries to be in my comfort zone instead of others, and I was still a godless a-hole with no sense of right or wrong before kicking and blocking me. TLDR, high school DM who follows class tropes too closely grew up and invited me to his dark, gritty game world, ends up destroying it with RPG tropes too when no one wanted to play into them, tells me I haven't grown up at all, then blocks me. And that is the conclusion of our story. I told you guys this was going to be a long one, and if you made it this far, congratulations. Now, I broke down most of my advice, okay? It's just literally what the OP said. It's literally this person's just playing to RPG tropes too tight. You're not playing by alignment. You're not playing by what the class I had in my head to be. I do not like class stereotypes, like the sexy bard and all that, the lawful stupid paladins. I like taking the character class and flipping them on their head. And sometimes it's okay to play the class as intended, okay? But remember guys, you don't have to play your alignment to a T. You don't have to play your class, the stereotypes of everyone else. This is more for people who are getting into TTRPGs or like to read the story and think about playing and like, oh, if I play a bard, I have to flirt with everyone. No, you don't. You don't have to. Find a DM that's actually flexible and actually knows what they're doing. Instead of this guy who has to adhere to these tropes that he himself has set in his head. And once again, this is just a communication issue. The DM should have just read all the characters' stories from the get-go and approved of them before playing and having all of this turned out. If he had a problem with how they were playing in the first couple sessions, then he should have said something about that immediately. Like, hey, I don't want you guys killing as much, or hey, maybe you guys should hear everyone out before you kill them. I did the same thing with my group because they tend to kill first, ask questions later, and I like to explain to them. I personally like to do the misguided but good nature in a way. This is actually from a horror story that I have, but I'm not going to tell the whole horror story. Essentially, it was the noble who had never been outside of his thing, and he came off as much as a prick, but I made it a really easy way to convince them that they were good people. He wasn't like, oh, I'm going to kill you. It was just more like, oh, you devilish rogues. And I'll tell the whole horror story another time. I'm thinking episode 50, which we're coming up on pretty quickly. So keep your eye out for episode 50. Subscribe, stick around, and hear my horror stories, I guess. But we'll see when we get there. Maybe I'll lie. Maybe I'm lying and I won't even do it at all. But anyways, the whole thing is, I sat down and explained, like, hey, I like to play out the misguided noble or misguided upper class person. And, I mean, it's a fantasy setting, so those people just need to have a system shock. They need to have a way that changes their mind, and that's what I want the party to do. I want the party to be the people that changes the mind of other people without having to kill them first. That session was really funny to me. But anyways, that's mostly what this is. It's just a miscommunication between the part. I mean, obviously the DM should have told the players what kind of people he wanted. He's like I said, the first couple sessions when stuff wasn't going his way or the way he wanted to or the way he expected to, he should have told the party instead of letting it play out. Now, this story is already super long, but I kind of want to read another. You know, I'm in the mood right now. I'm just ready to read. So I'm going to read a really short one here. Our final story comes from Winged One. You mean like a one-winged angel? Anyways, my player signed the worst bargain with a devil I've ever seen and only got around 1,000 gold worth of items. So I included a devil merchant in my Curse of Strahd campaign. I knew from experience that if I didn't make my merchant some kind of powerful being with teleportation magic, my players would murder him for his shoes. Are you sure your party isn't a horror story? Let's just keep reading. The devil's reason for helping the party is that so he can learn how Strahd, the main bad guy, pulls souls into Barovia, the place Strahd traps people. And if the devil can learn how to do the same, but with pulling souls into the hells. One of my players offers his soul to the devil in exchange for 3 items from his shop. Out of character, I don't want to screw this player out of a gun ending because he made a dark pact right before the final arc, so I say, a fascinating offer. Sadly, your soul is trapped in Barovia and holds no value to me. He doubles down. He says that he can kill Strahd and bring his soul back as payment, while the devil keeps his soul as collateral. I decided to print out a contract. Just read the agreement and tell me if you think my player made a good deal. The player will be allowed to take any 3 items from the devil's shop. The devil immediately removed the high value items the player hadn't seen from his shop. The player forfeits his soul immediately to the devil. When he dies, there will be no saves or resurrection as his soul will go down to the devil. The player will immediately put on a ring that binds to his finger, permanently taking the attunement slot. This ring will absorb Strahd's power if the players kill Strahd and give the power to the devil. The ring additionally devours the soul of anyone the player kills to feed to the devil. This ring can only be removed by a wish spell. The player gets the devil's promise that the devil will release the player's soul once he has Strahd's soul. This is not put in the contract, they just accept the devil's words. They additionally don't get any guarantees that the devil will let them out of Barovia once the devil gets Strahd's soul. They didn't think of it. What should I do? I legitimately don't know how my party can get out of this. I try to make it as obviously a bad idea as possible. I wasn't even trying to scam them. Well, if you think this is an incredibly bad decision that will horrifically impact the way that the story will play out, then the best decision here is to tell your players. But if you don't think it's going to impact the story and they can still reach the end of the campaign, well, honestly, if they didn't pick up on it, I mean, obviously, if they're super oblivious, then you should probably tell them about it. But if they haven't picked up on how bad of a deal this is, then you should, well, I guess explain it to them just a little bit more. I mean, sometimes it's not bad to be direct. But in the other case, if it's not going to ruin the story to the ending, just play it out. Who knows? That ending could turn into another campaign in of itself, where the players are trying to now escape the devil's hold on Barovia. And now they have to fight an even stronger version of what was to be Strahd. And now they have to fight the devil with Strahd's soul. And now, like I said, now it's just another fun campaign. So, I mean, you could go either way. You could just either be direct with them and tell them that this is a really bad idea and that you probably don't want to do this. Or just let them roll with it and turn it into a campaign. And that was it. That was actually a really fun one to end off on. I did have another story, but I'm reaching my time limit here. So, what would you guys have done differently? What did you guys think of today's stories? Do you have your own? Send it to my subreddit or, put it on the RPG horror subreddit and I might see it eventually, okay? But the best place is to use the social media I have in the description to reach me, so go check that out. And thank you to the OPs for posting today, and thank you for making it this far in the video. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and all of that blatant shilling for my channel. And, you get the idea. Every YouTuber does it. Click my name to see all the other content that I do. And if you like it, stick around, subscribe, and watch more. I have a whole playlist of RPG horror stories and stories alike. I really need to find some lighthearted ones. But whatever. We are getting to the end of the video. So, I hope you gobs have a lop of a day. May your adventures be free from horrendous stereotypes.